During the next half hour, we'll talk with Archbishop Blase Cupich about the announcement that he will be elevated to the College of Cardinals. We'll take you to the Golden Wedding Anniversary Mass at Holy Name Cathedral and learn the keys to a successful marriage from some of the jubilarians. And we'll show you how Theology on Tap energizes young adult Catholics and keeps them engaged in parish life. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
The Archdiocese of Chicago is a vibrant and diverse faith community. We celebrate our faith through worship, evangelization, and reaching out to the needy. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Hello, I'm Todd Williamson, Director of the Office for Divine Worship with the Archdiocese of Chicago. I'm in studio, as always, with Archbishop Blase Cupich. It's wonderful to see you.
Thanks.
Especially now, just a few days ago, you were told that Pope Francis has appointed you to the College of Cardinals, along with 16 other bishops that will take place in Rome on November 19th.
That's
Congratulations.
Right. Thank you, Todd. I appreciate that. And I appreciate all the warm sentiments that have been expressed by people since that announcement took place.
Not long afterwards, on the Sunday where you found out, after Mass, you made a point of saying that you were humbled, but you were encouraged. What encourages you about this appointment?
Well, to have someone of the stature of the Holy Father acknowledge you and name you to the College of Cardinals is really a singular source of encouragement for me. I have great admiration for him. So that's why I really was humbled, but also encouraged, because I know that he is an individual who does have high expectations. He makes it of himself. And my only hope is that I can live up to them.
Wonderful. So. Now, there is no ordination. A bishop is not ordained a cardinal. He's appointed.
In fact, they are. In fact, they say that they're created out of nothing. So, ex nihilo. Well, but then also, it's interesting, too, when you're a bishop, they ask you if you want to receive it, if you will take the assignment. This is just an appointment. It happens.
Right. Yeah. So there may not be any change, as you've said, to you personally, but there will be changes in terms of some added responsibilities. Do you have a sense of what those might be?
Well, already, of course, Holy Father's put me on the Congregation for Bishops, which is quite a responsibility. But I think that it also will mean that there are various events around the country at times that cardinals are expected to be a part of, and around the world, and so I just have to wait. I do, however, feel that my first responsibility is here in Chicago to the people in Cook and Lake counties, and that is where I'm going to put all my emphasis.
Do you have a sense yet of what will happen at the consistory on November 19th? What will happen with you and Pope Francis?
Well, I've been to those before. I was there some years ago when my former boss, Cardinal Laghi, was made a cardinal, and it is a very simple ceremony. The Holy Father speaks, the cardinals come forward, they receive, I think, a ring, and then their red beretta, and then afterwards there's a prayer service. So I think it's very simple. The next day will be the closing of the Holy Year in St. Peter's Square. So we'll celebrate with the Pope on that occasion.
That's wonderful. You must know how excited we are for you here in Chicago.
Thank you.
On behalf of all of our viewers, congratulations to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We're going to switch gears here and turn our attention to a very special celebration of matrimony. You were the main celebrant at Holy Name Cathedral for the Golden Wedding Anniversary Mass at the cathedral. There were some 500 couples who were there, married 50 years. In your homily, you made a number of, I think, excellent points. You talked about the couples in a number of different ways. You talked about them as disciples of Christ. You talked about marriage as a vocation.
Yes, it's clear to me that especially as couples look at their 50 years, it's more than just an endurance test. They have to be reminded of something they were told on their wedding day, namely that God was placing each other in their hands. and they have the prime responsibility to get each other to heaven. And so the importance, I think, of that part of their discipleship it was something that I wanted to emphasize, particularly with the wonderful readings that we had.
And that's tied into the idea of marriage as a vocation, a formal vocation in the church.
Right, and I also saw from the readings that, especially the gospel, that there was an understanding of discipleship as stewardship, in which they were really given to each other to care for this treasure of each other's souls and to help each other along the way. So that was the treasure that they were given.
The number of times even in the rite itself talks about the responsibility of helping the other attain holiness.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that sometimes we forget about that. But the readings, like all the time when I preach, I find a lot of grace in there to be able to bring out one or the other point, and so it seemed to work well.
One of the key elements or the highlights of the anniversary Mass is when the couples renew to one another their commitment. So this is a commitment that they've been living out for 50 years.
Right.
Well, how many years have you been ordained a priest and then a bishop?
Well, I've been a priest this year 45 years.
All right.
And it will be this week 18 years is my anniversary.
Congratulations on
yes.
that. But even 45 years, so they've got 5 years on you in terms of their marriage,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
So what's that like to witness 500 couples?
Well, and to talk to them afterwards, because I stayed for photos afterwards, I figured that I could stay a couple of hours to do photos if they were together with each other for 50 years.
You can endure that.
So it was nice to be able to chat with them. Each of them had a little story to say about something. And they really, you could see there was great joy in each one of them. They had a sense that this was an opportunity not only to mark their 50 years, but to celebrate it with the broader community. They found energy, I think, in just standing shoulder to shoulder with other couples.
Well, the whole cathedral was filled with the couples.
Yes.
Overflow was
Right.
in the next building, so
well,
family members.
When you get 500 couples and some of their family and all the rest of it, it really does fill that cathedral. And they sang so well. The music was good, but they really participated so very well in
Excellent,
the
excellent
service.
You know, the TV and radio office actually live streamed the celebration
Right.
of the Mass. And then afterwards, they stayed and they interviewed couples,
Oh.
yeah, asking for their advice and what were some of the keys to 50 years of marriage.
Oh, great.
Let's take a look at that here.
Oh, wonderful.
So as a couple, most of all is communication, and it also helped us a lot that we are from the same culture, the same religion, we have the same likes and dislikes, and for us it was planning and having goals and accomplishing them.
I think the secret to it is that we have been a team from the very beginning. We've always been a cheerleader. We're the #1 cheerleader for each other. We've always been there to support one another. When things came about and there was a need for compromise, we were eager to do that.
There must be enough love to overcome all kinds of obstacles, you know, the ups and downs, the good times and the bad times. And the truth is, I found a woman that truly adores me. And I worship her at the same time.
Okay,
That's how our marriage lasts.
go ahead.
I think we have a good understanding of each other.
Yes.
We share everything. We share ideas.
Honesty,
Yeah.
lots of honesty, lots of discussion. We've always talked to each other. We're really, I know it's trite, we're really friends. We really are. We grew up together.
You really should have a sense of humor and communicate. Don't hold anything back. And don't go in it with the idea of, if it doesn't work, no big deal. No, it's a commitment. It's a commitment to yourselves as well as our Lord.
Absolutely.
So,
the family who prays together stays together.
the old saying.
And one
yeah.
thing that someone told me a long time ago, okay, and I really appreciated it then, to make a perfect marriage, something really good, each party, if they give 70%, to their spouse and only expect 30% in return, you'll never have a problem. If you think about that, it's logical.
And it works.
Certainly some words of wisdom from people who know best, right?
Exactly, and I think that they had just a wonderful joy about them. So it was something that there was a serenity to each one of them as they came forward, a sense of peacefulness that God was with them every step of the way.
Nice, nice. So 50 years ago, 1966, 3 years after those people we just saw were married, the church issued the first edition of the Revised Order of Marriage that came from the Second Vatican Council, right?
Right.
Today, now, in 2016, we're just implementing the second edition of the Order of Matrimony that Pope St. John Paul II promulgated in 1990. It's taken a couple of decades to translate it. It was approved for use last year in the United States, and we've got a brand new Order of Marriage that we're getting people ready to use as of December 30th this year.
That's right.
Number of things in this Revised Order of Marriage. Two key points that I think are highlighted, among others certainly, but two key points are, for example, the idea that the church is responsible for care for these couples well after the marriage. You kind of highlighted that, latched onto that when Pope Francis wrote about it in The Joy of Love.
Exactly, because what the Holy Father said in The Joy of Love is that we're all on a lifelong journey. And so we have to take a step with each other. We have to encounter, we have to accompany, and we have to integrate, as he puts it. So the church has to be that partner that accompanies couples and helps them discern how God is calling them to fulfill their marriage commitment.
The other actually connected element that I think is highlighted, connected to that, is the idea that wedding liturgy is a communal celebration. It's a celebration of the whole church. Talk about that.
Well, you know, we do struggle with that because so often when we have weddings, some Catholics who are there almost forget that they have been at Mass before because they don't seem to respond. And so we have to prompt them a little bit. And I think a key element here is to engage those people who are there. They're not spectators, they're participants. They really are, with all of us, witnessing these vows, because the ministers of the vows is not the priest, it's the couple.
Right, right.
And so all of us there as a community are witnessing these vows to support them. And I think a major thing that I would emphasize is that the best way we can engage people is to have singable music so that people can join into that. There's nothing like singing that allows people to really participate in the liturgy. So my hope would be that as we implement this new rite of marriage, that we'll give more emphasis to the music that allows the congregation to sing.
Archbishop, that's an excellent point because, as you know, a new element in the Revised Order of Marriage that wasn't there before are exactly two places where the whole assembly sings an acclamation.
Right.
So right after the consent, or what most people call the vows, right, after the priest or the deacon receives the consent, there's an opportunity for an acclamation, which I think is a wonderful way to ritualize what those people want to do anyways, right?
Exactly. And I think, you know, sometimes in the past it's been applause or some other kind of reaction, you know, on the part of people. This allows it to really be a communal moment of an expression of faith.
Yes.
By which they are going to, the people who are there are going to be enriched by what happens, but also participate in bringing about the blessing of God on this couple.
That's wonderful. The second opportunity for such an acclamation comes after the blessing and the giving of rings. Calls for a communal hymn of praise to do exactly what you just said. Right. So as we're implementing this in the Archdiocese of Chicago, it'll be certainly one of the elements that we highlight. So we'll be ready for that.
Well, and it'll allow that couple to realize that this is not a private event, that community is willing to stand by them and with them.
Archbishop, as everyone knows, we're in the midst of a heated election right now. And one of the aspects that's taking attention is the importance of the survival of the Hyde Amendment. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, the Hyde Amendment was put into effect just a few years after the Roe versus Wade decision. Right. In 1976, in fact, it was 40 years ago, it was very clear that the nation was divided on this issue. And in order to reflect the sensitivity of that division, particularly those who really understood that abortion is about the taking of human life, the Hyde Amendment restricted federal funding for abortions in most cases. Before the Hyde Amendment, in between the Roe versus Wade and the Hyde Amendment, about 300,000 abortions were paid for by federal funds. That virtually dried up with the Hyde Amendment. The difficulty with the Hyde Amendment, of course, is that it has to be renewed every year, so that means we all have to keep vigilant about this. And so any attempt to diminish the importance of that, or maybe even say we're going to get rid of it, is very troublesome, because not only is it there to protect the unborn as much as we can, to save as many of the unborn children as possible, but it also is sensitive. It reflects a sensitivity to the fact that this is a heart-wrenching issue for people who really consider the taking of human life, the unborn, the most vulnerable, as a crime, as something that's morally repugnant. And so we really feel as though it's very important for us to keep in mind that as we move forward as a nation, that the sensitivity that is part of the diversity of our country continues.
We certainly want our viewers to understand this. What can the average Catholic do in the face of this?
Well, I think that people of both parties, people of all political persuasions, have to really do some soul searching here of, first of all, doing everything possible to protect the unborn, but secondly, of not imposing on those who, for very good reasons, feel as though abortion is something that should not be legalized, at least to make sure that people are not forced to pay for it. And that's really what this comes down to, because taxpayer dollars belong to all of us. And so we should be able to have that opportunity to make sure that our resources, our tax dollars, are not used to take unborn life. We have to make sure that we understand, particularly Catholics, what the Catholic teaching is, what social justice is about. For people to come forward and say, well, a Catholic position is that social justice means that we should pay for these decisions of people to take the life of the unborn, that's of course nonsense. That is not within the mainstream of Catholic moral teaching, and anybody who tries to say it is pretending, is living in a fantasy world. So we have to make it clear that the Church's position with regard to the unborn is that we protect that human life. And then secondly, that we not use taxpayer dollars to fund it.
You know, this was a topic that you wrote about, just the issue before the current one in our Archdiocesan newspaper. You wrote about the need for everyone to make decisions based on a well-formed conscience.
Right.
In the most recent issue, you continue really that theme by reprinting an article that Cardinal Wuerl in Washington, D.C. Had printed in their diocesan paper. Why did you think that was important?
Well, the Cardinal made, I think, a compelling case for, first of all, our political responsibility, but also the role of the Church. Many times there are people who want to leverage or manipulate the Church's authority and its hierarchy and its the bishop's voice for their political party, one way or another. And of course, we're not partisan.
Right.
We speak to issues. But what is really important is that while we cannot be involved in the political life in terms of partisan politics, and we do speak about issues, it is up to the lay people to in fact become engaged and be involved, either by running for office, being involved in their political party, speaking about voting, speaking about the issues, and so on. And so he makes those distinctions. He mentioned there are people who come up to him and say, well, why aren't you doing something about this? As though we're supposed to go in and tell people how to vote. That's not the role of the church. And so he turns the question around and saying, why aren't you doing something about it?
Yeah.
Because each one of us have a responsibility in good conscience to be faithful citizens.
He made a wonderful comment that I just like your reaction to. I think this is, I love the imagery here. He wrote that as pastors, we are called to teach, teach, and teach. As lay men and women, we're called to be salt, light, and leaven in our democracy.
Exactly. And those are three wonderful images because light, of course, shines into the darkness, the truth. Salt, of course, makes sure that we draw out the hidden elements that are part of our tradition, perhaps that we forget as the age goes on. And of course, the leaven gives rise to us to be able to make a difference and impact, transformative impact in the world, just as leaven does for dough. So we do have that responsibility, and that's why I want to make sure that people understand they have an obligation to vote. We can't sit out the election. People have to take a decision, and we have to own the decisions we make. We get the elected officials that we deserve because we live in a democracy.
And maybe that's why Cardinal Wuerl was so emphatic in making that statement that you, as bishop, the priests, the deacons, that their role is to teach, teach, teach.
Right, right. And also I think it's also, we were hearing voices of people saying, well, I'm not going to vote one way or another. That's a cop-out. It seems to me that people do have to make, no candidate is perfect, but we do have to make prudential decisions because these are leaders that will carry on and represent us, and so we need to be involved in the political process by voting.
I want to switch gears just a little bit. We're in the midst here in the Archdiocese in the initiative of Renew My Church, and our TV radio office is highlighting parishes that are good examples of vibrant life, right? Vibrant parishes.
Good.
This time, we're going to go to St. Clement Parish on the north side, where their Theology of Tap, I've participated. Have you had a chance to?
Yes, I did Theology on Tap.
Then you know that at St. Clement's, it is great crowds, energetic, and that's what we want to show on this video here. So let's take a look.
Great.
Theology on Tap is an initiative to reach out to young adults in their 20s and 30s, whether they're married or single or at whatever point in life. It's a way for the church to help them connect with their peers, and certainly for the church to welcome them in its doors, as well as to provide a place to talk about topics that are of interest to young adults.
One of the best ways to reach young adults is to go where they are. So these kind of events where they're able to socialize and talk to other young adults, you know, food and drink is provided after work. Just provides them a natural place to go to on a Tuesday night, which most young adults are not going anywhere else anyway.
Theology on Tap tends to be talks you often think that are generated for young adults, which are only related to young adult questions, things like where am I going or what my life means. But I think Theology on Tap is an occasion to talk to young adults about the deepest things that matter to their Catholic faith.
Theology on Tap really adds to the environment at St. Clement by providing more opportunities for the younger Catholics, younger adults, not only to find connections with the parish, but finding social connections with each other, which I think we really value. And then also finding other ways to just kind of enrich themselves in their faith. I think when you come out of college, and especially if you move to a new city, you're really looking for not only an environment of friends, but also an environment where you can kind of figure out who you are or become a better person, and we try to do all those things here.
So far, it's been really fun. I'm meeting a ton of great people, listening to a lot of great speakers. It's been really fun.
It's not about even inspirational quotes for your wedding, if you're going to be one of those people that eventually get married, which many of you desire to be. That's why you're here. You're laughing because it's true. The informality, the chance to ask the deepest questions about what matters in your life, I think really helps with Theology on Tap, especially dealing with some of the sort of core interests rather of Catholic identity. How do you think about being a Catholic? And the chance not to discuss that in a classroom, but in a young adult setting really gives people an opportunity to explore.
Theology on Tap is of great importance to our parish community here at St. Clement. Not only do we bring in a lot of new faces to Theology on Tap, but help connect them to the parish community. And our participants become active in our worship, our service, our learning opportunities, and eventually become leaders in the community.
See? An engaged group, right, of young people.
Very much so, and it's a great program that many parishes have implemented, and I know that that was a movement started here in the Archdiocese.
Yep, exactly. Theology on Tap for the continued development of our young Catholics. But also important, and again we were talking about this before the show, the importance of the professional development of our clergy. And in the Renew My Church initiative, that's something that is just developing and is taking shape, is it not?
Well, it's very clear. In fact, this is coming from our priests. They know that running a parish as a pastor is becoming more complex. And it's going to become more complex as we move forward, perhaps in the way parishes will now work together in different ways. And so we're going to be investing in that kind of development of skill sets for pastors going forward. We have some wonderful partners, professionals who can help with administration, with the whole issue of working with human resources and making sure that people who are leaders in parishes learn the skills of collaboration. This is going to take a team effort on behalf of a pastor to work with others. And sometimes those skills aren't easily, they're not innate. They have to be acquired. They have to be developed. And so we're looking for ways in which those who are going to be pastors moving forward, those who are priests now who will be asked to be pastors, and also our seminarians, will really have an opportunity to develop their skills with the best professional assistance possible. It used to be that a pastor, for the most part, almost did everything. He was the plumber, the janitor sometimes, the person who cut the grass, especially in smaller parishes. He made all the decisions. He was a bookkeeper. Well, that, of course, is not sustainable given the complexity of our parishes today. And sometimes pastors are asked to take 2 or more churches in order to really be pastor. So we have to make sure that we upgrade the level of skills for the pastors to meet this new reality.
So really looking at all the different elements and the different dynamics that are part of this initiative for Renew My Church.
Right.
Excellent.
And we want to make sure that our pastors feel comfortable with that new reality.
Renew My Church, the Golden Wedding Anniversary, the Revised Order of Marriage, and some of the issues surrounding the election right now. Number of topics that we've covered. As always, Archbishop,
I'm glad we solved all the problems.
That's right. Now the world can
all
rest.
the problems.
See? Thanks. Excellent to be with you. Thank you so much. Look forward to the next time. And to our viewers, I'm Todd Williamson. Thanks for watching Catholic Chicago, and we'll see you here next time.
We invite you to watch segments of Catholic Chicago and hundreds of additional Catholic videos at youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter.